Hello and welcome to the third.
Fourth.
This is
Fourth.
episode 4.
This is the fourth
For real 4.
May the 4th be with you.
Unknown Comics podcast. I am your co-host, Brandon, along with Chris and Tanner. Hello, guys.
Howdy.
And so Darren is at current driving to Florida.
Yep.
That's a long drive.
He's on his drive to Florida. He's got a couple of the ladies with him, Amy and Emily, both on their way with him.
Very good.
So, on their way to see Mark Brooks.
Yep.
Pretty exciting stuff.
Get some stuff signed, and of course, by the time this goes out, we will have already done the live sale.
This will come out tomorrow.
This will come out. So
Pre-live show.
So on Sunday, January whatever 17th.
Yep, Sunday
We
evening.
we will have, if you're watching this before Sunday, January 17th, or listening to it, we're doing a live signing with Mark Brooks,
Yep.
and we'll be.
They'll be for a couple hours Sunday evening. We'll have some art prints. Some I think we've got 20-something different exclusives and variants up there. Some ratios. Some pretty nice stuff. They found quite a bit. So, and then we'll have a few remark opportunities. So it'll be pretty cool.
Awesome. So if you're watching or listening to this after Sunday the 17th, it went really well.
Yeah.
We had a lot of fun.
You can watch that replay
We're
on YouTube.
I'm just speaking it into existence.
Yep.
It went great.
Yeah.
So, all right.
It'll be our first remote.
It is.
Yes,
it is.
Yeah, they will be joining us remotely while we're here, making sure it all goes well. So, first thing we want to talk about this evening is very much comic related. It is Marvel's big current crossover event, The King in Black, or King in Black. There's no the. Featuring the Marvel's newest big baddie,
Yep.
Null, the symbiote
biggest
god.
baddie. Yeah. Basically, Marvel's really ever had.
Yeah. So bigger than the Galactus.
Yeah. Right. If you're looking in here and you see what he can do to his what they call his first enemies, he controls them all. So I mean, he's pretty freaking powerful. I mean, he was the first thing into the void. So
Because he's not a Celestial.
he's taken over the Celestials. So I mean, he's literally controlling them in the series and bringing them to Earth to help fight battle.
His origin is
Basically, there was nothing, and then there was null.
And then there was null.
okay.
So
he's actually pre-celestial.
But there's other cosmic entities that are similar, right? I mean, Marvel has a huge cosmic pantheon, right? You've got the Beyonder and the
You've got all the Watchers. I mean, you've got all kinds of crazy big stuff out there
that have always predated stuff and things, but yeah, Null is now the arch of them all, and he wants to. What's his goal? That you can tell. So
I think it's to obliterate everything.
Yeah.
He's from the void, and he wants to return everything to just a void.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's complete domination, complete control.
Yeah.
Anything that doesn't want to be the way he wants to be, it's too bad.
Right.
I got to have it my way.
And one of his first conquests was the Clintar, the symbiotes.
They are him.
They are him.
It's a hive mind. The symbionts are a hive mind.
Okay.
He is the mind.
So I have not read. If you can't tell, they have. So I'm the uninitiated. So because I did some research on him, so I thought he conquered the Clintar and like took them over.
No, they are him.
Okay.
So he controls all of them. So he is the God Venom, is what they would call him.
Okay.
So they are all about him. They are do what he do. So he was gone for so long that that's why their story was the way it was. They're peaceful on their own world. This that
Right.
But no, it's because they didn't have him there controlling them. It had been so long in between that time. So
the Clintar had become independent
Yep.
of him over time.
So, but as soon as he gets around, the mind kicks right back in, and they go right back to wanting to be what he wants them to be, become part of the mind or what they was it the Hive?
The Hive, yeah.
The Hive.
So what's the big arc in King in Black 1? How are we starting? So we first saw Null back in
Venom 3 is his first appearance in the comics.
Right.
Which I haven't read any of the lead up. I've just started with King in Black 1, and so where we're seeing the story here is he gets to Earth and he's taking over the Avengers, a bunch of the X-Men.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of that doom
through the symbionts is how he's
Yeah.
doing it.
And it kind of leads up his son. You have no idea what's going on with his son. His son has powers of some sort. different things like this. He can kind of connect into the hive as well.
And we're talking about
Dylan.
Eddie
This
Brock's
is Eddie
son.
Brock's son. Yeah. So this is Dylan Brock. So
his son is the symbiote that Dylan has, or symbiote, or Dylan is.
Dylan is Eddie Brock's son.
Oh, sorry, I thought you said Noel's son. I was like, wait a second, Noel's son is Dylan. That's a random name for.
yeah. So it's
Gotcha.
interesting because basically a lot of the issues leading up to this is Eddie kind of telling a story to the Avengers, like, okay, this is what happened, and
Like
he's coming.
the whole
This is
thing.
it's all leading up to it.
It starts with Eddie taking Dylan to like a safe vault, a bunker, and
Okay.
locks him in. And then he goes. Brock goes to be Venom and try and help.
Okay.
You see the Avengers and Avenger Tower. Tony's trying to organize the whole
Space
resistance.
defenses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It all happens real fast, and they're fighting, and then in the next frame, a whole bunch of them are nullized, and then the X-Men show up, and then real soon, a bunch of them are nullized, and so it's just
Nullified.
nullified.
Yeah. They're all symbiotes, and he's controlling them all,
Okay.
and they all become part of the hive. And then all of a sudden you see the Celestials show up, and boom, they're landing on Earth, and they're punching everything and taking out everybody. And
So it very much reminds me of that, like, Ultron kind of storyline where it starts off at the worst point kind of deal.
Gotcha. Kind of in media res is what they would.
so Noel gets here, he takes over everything, and then he covers the entire Earth in darkness. Just a huge, basically, symbiote cloud.
Okay.
So basically the whole world becomes the hive, and he's just kind of chilling on his throne. Venom's trying to get in there and connect to the hive via a Carnage throne that was kind of left behind when Carnage was trying to take over what was going here.
So why is Venom not part of the hive?
He was able to separate.
Well, and
Yeah.
so Venom's been bonded to Brock for so long
Yeah.
that Noel is just having trouble
Basically, but he's able to
claiming him.
choose.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he's able to choose. And they're kind of getting to that again at the end of what we've gotten to so far at the end of, I think it's what, Venom 33?
32 is the last one I read.
Yeah, so at the end of Venom 33, they kind of get to that where Eddie's now in the hive.
Yeah, that was 32.
That was 32?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's in the hive, and then Rex comes back.
They're
And
both.
You see Flash Thompson come back. Their codex is inside of the hive.
Okay.
They're not really in the hive. It's like these.
Their mentalness.
These memories that the symbiote has of the that stores every host in there. So
which they call their codex. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all in the hive, and so they're all about to start fighting back within the hive.
So basically, those codexes are kind of manifesting.
right, which we skipped ahead a little bit. So Venom 31, we see Brock. He's trying to fight back and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Then in King in Black 2,
That's where we see Eddie.
Eddie gets his butt whooped.
Yeah.
And they take him back to I'm assuming Avengers Tower, and Tony, Reed Richards, and
Sue's there.
Pete's there.
Yeah.
They're all trying to figure out how to save him. I forget who came up with the idea. I think it was Tony. Said the only way to save him is to rebond him to a symbiote.
Yeah, to one of the ones that he brought with him.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Tony goes out and
He tries
takes
to
care
bond
of
it.
one. Yeah.
And it doesn't work. It ends up killing Brock.
Oh.
Yeah.
He's dead.
So Eddie's actually dead right now at the end of issue 2, King in Black.
Okay.
And then we get to Venom 32, and that's where we're seeing their consciousness inside of the hive.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is there any connection to what happened in Absolute Carnage?
Yes. So the throne and everything that's there at the end that Eddie's trying to use to connect to the hive, that's something that was left over from Absolute Carnage.
Okay.
So in Absolute Carnage, he was hunting all these codexes which is basically what we're talking about still here. He's going to everybody that ever had a symbiote, ripping those codexes out of those people to make himself stronger and better.
Right.
You know, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, so it does have definitely some resonance.
So where is Carnage in all this? I did not read Absolute Carnage, so I don't know where Carnage.
Carnage right now is still gone.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think that at the end of that, he was gone.
You think he makes an appearance in
Now,
this?
do we're seeing Carnage in other series where you see Mary Jane with Carnage kind of in some of the King in Black stories. I don't really know if that's actually going to have anything to do with the actual overall series because it's, Mary Jane and Gwynnum having like a fight over who's the best rocker. So, I don't really know if it's going to have anything to do with any of the overall story.
Okay.
Now you see like Namor, some of these things, they do have things to do with the story. Their own basically side quest of fighting off different parts of what Noel's bringing in.
He was like, so he was like, we were the kings of the void under the sea, so we're going to come out. We're like the only chance to fight them as.
Yeah. Namor got pretty pissed,
level.
actually. He was like, listen, I've been doing this for millions of years.
Fighting the void.
Yeah, I can do it.
So is there connection between the sea void and Null? It's
I think we're going to see something about that.
Okay.
It does. He went and talked to some creatures that looked kind of symbiote-like in a way that have been banned for a long time.
that knew of Null.
That have, I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
They kind of left it there.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
We haven't seen anything since.
So pretty much the main titles in this big crossover course are the King in Black
And Venom.
title and then Venom.
Yeah.
So
and they actually read, back to back. They're panel to panel, book to book.
okay.
So yeah, you can they read right together.
For sure, read those titles. I think every Marvel book is going to have a tie-in.
They all do. This is everybody, X-Men, and it doesn't really.
But how important those tie-ins?
Yeah, the X-Men. You can even see in the King of Black, the X-Men are like, no, we're not helping anymore.
Yeah, we're done.
I think my thing with tie-ins has been, you read kind of the main issues, and then you read the tie-ins of the books you're already reading, right?
Yeah.
The way they did it with this
it's a
too
good
is like
idea.
some of the tie-ins, they actually basically made them like one shots or
Yes.
two shots. like the Marauders, King of Black. It's just its own issue.
It's definitely not like Ten of Swords where every book was important to the story.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool.
But as far as one of my favorite things is just the interior art. Stegman has some beautiful.
Is he drawing
Full-
interiors for both?
Yes, for the main series.
For the
yeah.
main
For
series.
the main series.
I think he does the interiors of Venom also.
Yeah.
But he has some beautiful full spreads.
And then Cates is writing both as well.
Yeah, Case is writing everything. As far as this goes, of course, he's the overall creator for all of it, him and Stegman both.
Yeah.
It's a really cool little series so far. They've done a really good job with it. And, of course, the lead up has been 2 years coming.
How important are the Spider-Man tie-ins?
Not as much, although Peter is in there. But
They're really focusing on Venom without
'cause-
Spider-Man being involved.
And again, he's going to have his own KIB kind of one-shot
Right.
things. Peter is in the book.
He's there, but he's definitely not a main character as of yet.
But Nick Spencer's been doing his own thing on Spider-Man, and
Yeah.
he's almost 60 issues into that. So it's a bi-monthly.
Right.
So he's been doing his own thing with Kindred and all these different characters that Spider-Man's been dealing with. So
Yeah.
it's kind of hard to take that away and just boop. Now you're in this.
So we'll probably come back to this once the run is done. How long is the run slated to go?
So I think it winds down in March.
Okay.
So basically January through March.
So is King of Black a 6 issue?
5 issues.
5 issue.
Yeah, unless they try to DC us and throw an extra one on there, because
Right.
that wouldn't surprise me.
They
But
did-
I don't
they-
think.
they did it with Secret Wars too. They tagged on an extra one with Secret Wars
Yeah,
too. So.
with Solicits already being out and everything, I don't see them
Yeah.
adding anything else.
Yeah, we'll follow it along as it progresses.
Yeah, but it's been really good so far. It's hard to. It's kind of like I was telling Tanner. King of Black 1 has a lot of substance. King of Black or the issue 31 of Venom's like, here's a little bit of filler, and then you
Yeah.
get to King of Black 2, and then Venom 32. They both have a lot of substance as well. But it's kind of like getting on Netflix and watching something. It's hard to just read one.
Right.
Yeah, it's good to have a few in there, and then you just kind of slam them out pretty good.
So here in a couple weeks on the podcast, we'll go ahead and we'll do a recap and kind of like we did with Ten of Swords.
Yep.
And really get that going, and I will get caught up. I promise. It's just been a couple crazy weeks, not being able to catch up to that. So staying on comics, it was announced this week that Chris
just a couple hours
just a
ago.
couple hours ago.
Yeah, today.
Breaking news.
That Chris Evans is reportedly rumored in talks with Marvel to continue being Steve Rogers.
Yeah.
So how do you retcon him back in?
Yeah, and I think it was pretty open to see he could have still been in there the entire time, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think, of course, with WandaVision starting tomorrow, we're going to see how much it's all really going to change. I mean, they've already shown was Evan Peters as Quicksilver, seen different shots of that, of him being in there, her somehow plucking him out of some timeline and maybe bringing him into the MCU.
What if all of Phase 1 was actually inside of her head?
Yeah. So,
Evan Peters or
the Fox version of Quicksilver. Yes.
Really, I did not see that yet. I'm trying to stay away from WandaVision because I want to go into it fresh.
Yeah.
Which at the time of recording this podcast comes out tomorrow.
Yep. Yeah.
Very excited about
That'll
it.
be lunchtime tomorrow.
Yeah, so,
which maybe not, because I think they said they're going to maybe do 2 episodes for the first Friday tomorrow. So we'll see.
So that's what The Expanse did. They dropped 3 on launch day, and then it's been weekly ever since. Which I think
Prime's pretty used to doing that, though.
Yeah.
I prefer when they do the weekly releases as
drip.
opposed to just giving us the whole series.
Yeah.
I'm not a binge watcher.
Yeah, it gives you a little while to think on it, and then you go back and watch that one another time.
Yeah. So I definitely think WandaVision and, of course, Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, which this is kind of the lead-in into, is going to start giving MCU a lot of play on what they can and can't do with continuity, right? They can start doing the weird stuff, right? And start
anything they want to retcon, which I feel like they've overall done a really good job.
Yeah.
I mean, there's been a little bit of here and there timeline issues.
I just want to see how crazy Wanda gets in the MCU. If she gets nearly as crazy as she is in the comics. Because, spoiler alert, she gets crazy.
Yeah, if she doesn't like you, you don't need to be there anymore.
she only makes depowers 90% of the mutants on Earth in 3 words.
It's fine.
She's just that powerful. Which of course, MCU Wanda has a completely different power set. MCU Wanda is almost very Jean Grey-ish, right? In a lot of what she can do.
I don't think they've really. I think it'd be kind of hard to express everything she can do.
Yeah.
And I think maybe this TV show will let us dive deeper into that so we can really do that in the movies.
Well, and I think you've seen that throughout the whole progression of the MCU is like they slowly get weirder and weirder with the content as your non-comic book fans get more into it and understand what's going on.
Yeah, it helps to just not be like, what? That ain't a thing? Like, your brain can't stretch that far right away.
I mean, no yellow spandex in the very first movie kind of deal.
Which, kind of sidebar, is Wanda a mutant again in comics? I know they got away from it in Uncanny Avengers, that they were not, that Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch were not. They were created by the High Evolutionary.
Yeah, I don't know.
And I don't know where they've landed them to be.
I think a lot of people would still say, they're mutants.
You
know what I mean? Just because they always have been.
Yeah.
They
were always the mutants who were in the Avengers, right?
The only reason they weren't mutants is because of the MCU.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the only reason they did that.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think it's going to come across as saying they were the first mutants in the MCU.
Yeah.
And we just because they've never really labeled them anything else outside of just people.
Well,
they've
avoided the whole term in the movies.
They've never called them Inhumans.
They've never called them Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver.
Yeah.
So it was always Wanda and Pietro.
Yeah. So I think
then Fox never called him Pietro either. They called him Peter.
Yeah.
So
we'll see. But it's pretty cool to see that Chris Evans will be coming back. I was like, see Chris Hemsworth was going to stick with Thor, and they've already been announcing, Chris Pratt and some of the Guardians are going to be in Thor: Love and Thunder.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be pretty cool to see Chris Evans actually come, if he does come back.
Yeah.
To play the role. Now it just kind of depends on what that's going to mean.
If it means solo movies again, or if he's just cameos.
Yeah.
Just to keep everything.
Is he going to be Captain America, or is he just going to come back as Steve Rogers?
Well, and we've seen instances in the comics before where you can have 2 Captain Americas at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can have an old Captain America.
Yeah, and he and
Old Man Cap and Old Man Logan.
Yeah,
there you go.
So I think I don't know. There's even talks about somehow they're going to figure out how to get bring Wolverine back in some shape or form or fashion,
2 hours.
Just to have a little.
It's just 2 hours where Cap sits around and talks about Nazis, and Logan sits around and talks about fighting Japs.
The funny thing about that, there's quite a few storylines where they fought together in World War II.
Yeah,
and they just kind of took it as, wow, this guy is like really lucky, not realizing that he could heal every time he was getting shot up.
Yeah.
So, there's lots of cool storylines about that. So,
there you go. And Wow, we're just breezing through everything. So, kind of a special topic tonight that we wanted to talk about. That's a little off, kind of unknowns, kind of genres of stuff, comics and tabletop gaming. But for many geeks out there, Cyberpunk 2077 came out a few weeks ago, and it was not a great release.
It was not well received.
It was not well received. Kind of the general consensus was the game was rushed out early. It was not done baking yet, so the console versions were just super buggy. The PC version was better, but still not perfect. Earlier this week, the creators of CD Projekt, the Polish company that actually developed Cyberpunk 2077, did a big apology video. This is the call was ours to make. It was a bad, it was a bad call. We weren't done. This is what we're going to do to fix it.
So are they just trying to get this out to make sure it was on the new platforms? Was that the only reason to get it out?
So part of this is, this game had been in development for quite a few years, and was slated to come out earlier this year. Of course, COVID does have an effect on video game development, right? A lot of these developers, their teams are working from home, so a lot of file transfer and stuff. It's not like being in the studio where
file transfer takes a long time.
Where you're like, especially art assets and stuff like that, where you're not all in the same area. And
then like a lot of the artists and stuff, they're not necessarily network technicians either. So if they're having problems, they're having to call their IT department.
Exactly. And sometimes stuff's outsourced. And so they of course delayed it towards the end of 2020, which at the time, you had a bunch of people that were like, that's fine. We want a done game. Delay it until it's ready. And then unfortunately, you have the other side of that where people are like, no, you've been developing this for blah, blah years. I want this game. I've pre-ordered it. So the reason I want to talk about this is last week we talked about FOC and what that does for a comic store, how it helps a comic store with their purchasing, and we talked about speculation but how FOC plays into all of that. And on the whole, we highly recommend pre-ordering, essentially pre-ordering your books. One, it does guarantee that something ends up being a limited or ends up being very popular. Star Wars: The High Republic, you still got a copy, right? And then it also informs y'all's purchasing decision, so you get enough copies. Video games pre-ordering is different. I worked at GameStop. Tanner worked at GameStop for years, and they pushed us as employees to get pre-orders. Reservations is what GameStop would call them, but they're pre-orders, right? Yep. For no other reason than it helped the publishers tell the investors, this is what we anticipate to do revenue-wise once we launch the game. Yeah. Right?
How far back did pre-orders go? Months?
Honestly, the minute a game is released, most retailers, so
announced or released?
Generally announced. And sometimes not up like the. It depends on the publisher, right? Yeah. And really it depends on the retailer, honestly. I think generally when a game is released, it's been a long time since I worked at GameStop, but they'd announce a game at E3. And the information flow back then, this is 2004, probably wasn't as immediate, but a game would get announced at like E3 or whatever, and you'd see it in the computer.
To pre-order.
Yeah.
Now, I remember just from shopping there so long, Hastings, when they were still around, their pre-order was 30 days before launch.
Yeah. So different retailers do it differently, but now GameStop wants to do it because it does tell them how many copies
they want to order.
Right? But all that to say, there was never a title. I was there when Halo 2 dropped, which was probably, while I was there, was one of the most highly anticipated. The next second would be that year's Madden game, right? We always had enough copies.
Yeah.
Like there was never really a reason. Now, if you were going to do a collector's edition or something like that, yeah. Which, I mean, variants, right? They kind of fall in that same category. It never, there was never a chance that you probably weren't going to get that game, right? So you didn't have a lot of scalping and stuff like that, or you know, gouging the prices and stuff like that. You know, it came out at its retail price, which then, you know, new games are $50 way back when. Not anymore. Like I said, the pre-order process was more for the marketing teams at these at the retailers and the publishers to just have those metrics going into a sale.
Well, and it's the supply and demand of the two different of print and video games is completely different. I mean,
Yeah.
once you print an issue, that print run, that's it. That's all they're making.
Yeah, video games, it's going to keep happening until that game doesn't make any money anymore.
It's a digital product. There's no supply. It's
So
limitless.
now it is. So I will say, you know, fast forward to 2020, where most of your sales are digital, you're not going to ever run out of copies,
Well,
right?
and even before it completely went digital, you knew in a few months they were going to release the Platinum Edition.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You're going to get the Ultimate Edition. You get all the maps right now. And
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. So you know, so here's how. So now what we're going to do, we know you don't need to pre-order. We're going to give you pre-order bonuses, right? It's going to be extra loot or content in the game if you pre-order, or we'll do a collector's edition that has, you know, junk in it that you're probably just going to never.
seasons, maps, whatever they call their
Yeah.
extras, you get all that for the next
Exactly.
year. Yeah.
So what I think happened with CD Projekt was they're a privately owned company. They're not public. However, even privately owned companies have investors. CD Projekt very much had investors. Investors who had put money down 7 years ago that are starting to get antsy,
Yeah.
right? They're ready to start seeing a return
They want that
on their investment. And what I don't understand is they had the COVID card to play. They had already pushed the game to later this year, probably last year before any of this had happened. Which I wonder if at that point already soured the investors, right? So now you layer COVID on top of that, and to push it out again to 2021, you know, everybody's saying March 2021 probably should have been the actual release, you know, a year past what it originally had needed. I almost wonder if you know, the pressure was, you know, the investors are seeing, we have this many pre-orders already. This is like guaranteed money. Let's release it so we can, and now, and the problem is, you know, 20 years ago, you had a video game. When you sold it, that was the game. There was no patching it. There was no, I mean, you didn't have DLC a whole lot.
Yeah.
That was starting to happen, right? You started having Xbox Live. You could kind of start doing downloaded contents. Yeah, you could do some updates, but you weren't doing just big, huge updates. And so you've had, you know, these publishers like EA and Activision that almost move games to a live service type model like Destiny, to where now you kind of have an out that you don't really have to ship a finished game.
Yeah.
Right? You can ship a almost finished game and then just update it through live service, right? Yeah. This is just us
finish the game through DLC.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what kind of pushed CD Projekt to do this. And
EA is the worst about it. About releasing everything as DLC.
What's sad is CD Projekt, you know, The Witcher 3 was their biggest game prior to Cyberpunk, right? They had just been, you know, I think Witcher 3 came out like, what, 2015?
It's been out a while. I was still at the mall when it came out.
Yeah. So, and it was buggy when it launched, but they were technically an indie developer at that time. That game propelled them, plus getting the Cyberpunk license and all the stuff that they hyped, built them into a AAA game developer. This small little Polish development studio just got really big. They attracted a lot of investors, probably a lot of investors that possibly have never been
investors in this kind of stuff
in this genre, right? And so they were the ones that were supposed to be better than EA and Bethesda and Activision, right? The kind of the big ones. Bethesda had dropped a lot of balls in recent years. Fallout 76, a lot of the same stuff happened with them.
Yeah, I remember that.
Not nearly to this extent, right? Like Cyberpunk 2077 on PS4.
I've never heard as much stink as I've
It's
heard
made for
on this
some
game.
really good TikTok content.
Right. Yeah, it's a great game. You could tell like the developers really had something, but like the publishing arm of CD Projekt,
the polishing wasn't done yet.
it wasn't. No. And so I played it on PC, and I quite enjoy it. They patched a lot of stuff. PC is close to being there.
Yeah.
Just a few more tweaks and stuff. I haven't played it on console to know. It's just sad that
I think PlayStation got it worse, right? Like they were out of
PlayStation 4 got it so bad that they pulled it from
it's not even
digital sale.
Yeah, and I think it's still off.
Yes.
Yeah.
As of right now, it's still off. You can still do physical copies. It's up to retailers whether or not they pull the physical copies off the shelf. I don't know what GameStop's done. Is GameStop even still around?
Yes. Somehow.
Because they buy your games for $1 and then sell them for $20.
Xbox was doing
up that.
Xbox was doing refunds, but they didn't end up pulling it because it did perform a little better on Xbox.
Yeah.
The apology video that came out yesterday or the day before, I can't remember, explained why they had such issues with consoles. A lot of times with game development, if you're going to do consoles and PC, you develop for console and then you port to PC. Right, and a lot of PC gamers hate that. Right,
It used to be the other way around.
Well,
there'd be times where you'd get something on a PC, and then a couple months later,
for the longest time,
finally get it on a console.
For the longest time, you had console games and you had PC games.
Yeah.
Then you started having you would have ports kind of back and forth, and then what happened is your real AAA developers would develop for console and then port to PC. Sometimes you'd have it the other direction, and CD Projekt, that's technically what they did with Cyberpunk. They were developing a PC game first, because that's the first two Witcher games were not on console. They were PC game developers. And then they were going to port it to console essentially, or reverse develop it for console. And they weren't ready for the headaches that was causing. And so, you saw towards launch, they got slammed for what they're calling crunch in video game development, which is basically, forcing your employees to go on
done
crazy overtime to get a game ready for launch. And I guarantee you, a lot of it was just bug squashing. It was not content. It was trying to work out what was happening with the consoles and why they weren't. And
somebody somehow missed that little man thing hanging out of the pants.
Yeah, it was just, texture pop in and stuff like that, just really bad. They knew. Like they would say that like their test copies of console weren't that bad when
it's a mature game in the first place.
Yeah.
So if Mom is mad that Timmy saw what he saw, you knew when you bought him the game, right? That was a possibility.
You were only seeing it's an M-rated game anyway. You were only seeing that if you had that turned on anyway.
Okay.
My freshman year of high school, we went on our every year, being a band nerd, we'd have a band trip. We went to Dallas my freshman year. And they'd always take us to the mall to eat lunch because they could give us some cash and we'd go to the food court, get whatever we want. Well, that was the same year that the Godfather game came out on Xbox.
Oh gosh, wow!
And me and all my freshman nerd friends,
I was working at GameStop when that came.
We pulled our money together and got a senior to go buy the game for us.
That's
because
rated mature.
We had packed an Xbox to play it in the hotel.
Heck yeah.
That's funny. That's hilarious.
So the night before we do our concert, we stayed up all night playing Godfather in the hotel room.
Yeah. I would.
Great concert next day, right?
It was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was probably back then, Yeah, I mean that was after Grand Theft Auto 3, so that's kind of when you were starting to get to the upper echelon of mature games.
I think that's
right?
the last GTA I've really ever
3.
actually played.
I played 5 a little bit. Cyberpunk needs that level of polish and I think that's what they were. I mean, that's kind of in the same wheelhouse.
It's kind of what they want eventually, I'm sure. I
Yeah.
mean, I've seen some of the side by side with the newest GTA, and then of course that, and hey, this does this. Why doesn't this do that?
And
You
and
know?
they've talked about multiplayer. Now they're kind of talking about multiplayer being its own title now, not actually being
separate game completely.
yeah. So like Fallout 76 is to Fallout 4, right? Same engine, different actual release. That kind of sucks. I wish they would have done like what Grand Theft Auto has done with Grand Theft Auto Online, GTA Online, which it's just like an add-on to it. But you know, if it's good, I'll pay for it. You know, kind of a thing. It's just sad that. So, all this to say, pre-order comics, don't pre-order games because here's what pre-ordering games tells a video game publisher, that you have my money.
What does it matter? What the game's going to be like, right?
Just release it. You know, when you know when it's whenever you think you're ready to reclaim that investment.
Yeah.
You know, and that's just not a good business model. Like, I remember being a kid, you didn't have the hype marketing train for a video game. All of a sudden, you just showed up at Toys R Us and Mario 3 was on the shelf.
Yeah.
You might have gotten a little hype from it.
Yeah.
You know,
magazine article, something here or there.
Yeah, I subscribed to a few magazines when I was in middle school, but
you'd get a little bit here and there, but they would never throw out concrete release dates.
Yeah, and
know?
that would have been, you know, kind of like anything else game wise, where that would have been completely all the risk on the store, whether they wanted to hold that or not.
And so that's a lot of it, and that's what it is a lot of retailers won't open up pre-orders until they have a date.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, because it's all risk at that.
So marketing wants to get a date out there quick, and once a date's out there, you know, pushing it back is a big deal. Now, if you haven't put a date out, you know, it's like this. It's this weird dichotomy that if there's no date on it, you don't care.
Well, and you know, I've worked in environments like that where deadlines are completely arbitrary.
Yeah.
Because they don't mean anything. So moving it back is no big deal.
Right. But you look at comics, moving a comic back after solicitation
It's a huge deal.
is a huge deal.
You know, and especially if you, because I mean, video games. There's a lot of video games,
Yeah.
but there are way more comic book titles that are out there.
Right.
So I mean, you move one book, and let's say it actually is something that matters to a storyline.
Yeah.
That whole storyline's messed up now.
Yeah, because then you have to push back everything
push
or
back
release them out of
everything.
order.
Yeah.
Case in point, Secret Wars.
Yeah, Secret Wars, you know, or
That
you
was-
know, somehow Gambit shows up before he's supposed to when something gets published before it gets published.
Or
you
what
know.
was it? Which COVID kind of screwed this up, but Scorpion's symbiote appearance. What's his name? Virus.
Oh, yeah, I'm going.
Virus showing up like in free comic.
Oh
comic
yeah,
book
yeah.
day
It was
comic.
supposed to be in Free Comic Book Day, and then that Free Comic Book Day comic actually came out the week after Venom 26.
I thought it was the other way around.
No.
His first appearance was supposed to be Venom 26, but the free comic book day hit on free comic book day.
No, yeah, it was supposed to be in Free Comic Book Day, but like I said, that actually came out a week after Venom 25. It was Venom 25 because
Yeah.
there was like a splash page in there that he was in there. It didn't really say who he was or anything
Yeah.
like that. But yeah, and then the Free Comic Book Day finally came out the week
gotcha.
afterwards in July. So yeah, but yeah, that was a mix up.
But like comics, it's like you don't have near the complications that a video game has, right? There's no testing a comic,
No,
right? A lot of times you're just waiting on an artist.
yeah, you're waiting on
Most times.
script or you're waiting on interior page, interior colorist. I mean, there are still a lot of moving parts.
Yes.
But yeah, it's nothing like what goes into a video game as far as what's being developed.
Yeah. So
While we're still halfway on the subject of video games, did y'all see that Star Wars announced an open
see
world
that
game
today.
today?
yes, yeah, Ubisoft.
Yeah, that's really exciting. That'd be. I'm curious to see what it's gonna. What timeline?
played-
Did they say anything about that?
They didn't say anything other than that it's going to be open world, which
They
I played
did.
Star Wars Galaxy back in the day, and that was fun just roaming around.
Yeah, but that was back when open world was a little bit different, right?
Yeah.
So that wasn't. I would say Galaxies was more your traditional MMORPG where you had these different areas, right? But not open world in the Grand Theft Auto sense, or in this case, Assassin's Creed, right? That's where people are drawing a lot of parallels because that's the big open world that Ubisoft's known for, or Ubisoft, whatever you want to say. I am French, Ubisoft. So you think, they don't know what sub studio they're tasking into. Actually, no, it's called Massive, is the studio inside of Ubisoft that they're giving it to, which I'd have to go and look and see what they're.
Did they give so you're speaking of release dates and stuff like that, did they give a timeline for this?
No,
they just announced that they're doing it.
Development, boom, just started.
But, and what's weird is so like I said, you had CD Projekt who should have been better than all this, right?
Yeah.
And should have been, they're the indie studio that's making a AAA game, right? Well, you've actually had EA, like within the past year, actually like not being EA. They released Star Wars Squadrons. They announced that at E3 this past year during COVID, and then dropped it. They had already been working on it, and like it was this small budget game. Like
it's gotten a lot of love though. From what I understand,
it was a great game.
Yeah,
like they had some issues with like matchmaking and stuff like that, but a really well made game. It was $40. It was. And they've said, like, they talked about, we're going to release this game. We don't plan to do DLC for it. Now, they've done a little bit, but
not so much that you just, at some point, you're going to have to buy the DLC to.
Right. No, and they haven't, literally, they have charged $0. No microtransactions in it. Nothing. Like, it's
like the old days.
It was like.
You went and got a cartridge game and you played that game.
That's what they said. And it was very un-EA of them to release a game that way, but they did. Something's got to change. The big publishers are just the model is just going nuts, right? And it's forcing games to come out that
when they're not ready.
When they're not ready, just so that they can
that ROI.
Yeah, they can just cash in, and then
it's like,
we can fix it down the road.
It's like everyone wants to be Call of Duty now. They want to have their game come out every November.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
and I'm sure they've got completely different teams working on those every time.
EA started that. That was the sports games.
Yeah.
Like literally, why am I buying the same game? All I'm getting is a new roster.
Yeah.
We're going to stop updating the last one, so you have to get the new one.
We've changed the game engine. No, you didn't. No, you might have tweaked something, but it plays exactly the same.
Every few years, it might be something big.
Right.
But outside of that, it's not really
like literally rosters could be DLC, and you could charge me $5, and I'd be like, yeah, let's do that.
I'll take the little bit lower quality and still keep playing.
I remember. So I was at GameStop. It was 2005. So Madden 05 had come out, or was coming out, and we were getting reservations on it, pre-orders like crazy, because Madden was just
that was it.
That was the game every year that you just got the most, unless you had like a title like Halo 2 or something, right? But 2K Games comes out with an NFL 2K.
That didn't last long.
They released it for $20.
Yeah.
Holy cow! And it was actually.
It wasn't bad at first.
Yeah, it was a good. I mean, it was a highly competitive game. They did that with their NHL game. The NHL game was actually better than the EA version, and they sold it for $20. And then they did it the next year. I'm like, I could get on board with yearly $20 sports games. Yeah, 2K, they did that for like 3 or 4 years, maybe.
Now they still have basketball, right? Like that's the big thing.
Yeah, they still have basketball. They lost NHL. They lost NFL really quickly after that.
Yes, very quickly.
Like I'm pretty sure
EA was like, nope.
They cinched up the license, and now they're still the only football game.
Yeah, because that was very competitive. I think they were very, very afraid that they were going to lose that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think 2K scared them, and they offered the NFL a ton of money.
Yeah.
And the Players Association a ton of money to be exclusive, which they still have. Which, NFL is notorious for exclusivity.
Yeah.
DirecTV, all that stuff. So like I said, it saddens me that, I'm of the mindset that don't give it a date. Don't pre-order a game. You don't need to. Yeah. Like, literally, it's a digital game. If it's a game you're interested in, buy it on launch day. Yeah. Like the pre-order bonuses you're going to get aren't worth what the ramifications are. It's going to
them make it right.
Yeah, it's gonna force them to not really care about release date. You're telling them I'm buying this regardless is exactly what you're saying when you pre-order a game. That you've got my money regardless. I'll take whatever you give me.
And I think sadly this is moving over into movies now. You know, what we saw with Wonder Woman. I think they were like, you know what, we're going to launch this big HBO Max initiative. We're going to make everything available.
Yeah.
Because our investors, they can't take it anymore. And I think it's the same thing, right?
And it doesn't help there that DC still doesn't know what they want as far as a cinematic universe.
And you know, for me, Wonder Woman was supposed to come out 2019, way before COVID, and then they pushed it. I mean, that movie was done for like a year and a half before it actually, and it still wasn't going to come out until they were like, okay, fine, let's just put it out. Let's get this thing going. We'll use Wonder Woman as the Kickstarter. Somehow it had all these great reviews, making it like so popular. I don't know if there may be some kind of, I'm sure there's people out there with theories on that.
It's because reviews are fake.
Well, you know, but I mean, there is all the, I mean, it had quite a bit of test market, but I mean, of course, now it's rotten on, you know, the Rotten Tomato score and all that kind of stuff since it's been out. But
which I think last week we mentioned this is like, you know, why would a movie that's already been shot, that's already done with principal photography and now is in post-production, why would COVID have affected post-production? And I started thinking about it. It very much does, for the same reason it affects video games, especially like a AAA, like a large budget, high CG. Mm-hmm. So your computer graphics animators share a lot in common with video game.
Well, that and
production, right?
Just the size of the 4K footage, or you know, I'm sure they shoot it in higher than 4K.
Right.
Too.
So you know all these CG, you know, studios and stuff, they're doing the same thing video game studios are doing, right? They're working from home. They're transferring files. They're doing what they can. Think of trying to score a movie right now. How do you get a symphony together? Yeah. You know, I'm sure they're finding ways to do it. But, you know, so there's a lot in post-production that's not just the editor sitting at a computer and just cutting the movie together, right? Yeah. Anymore now, there's so many, you know. I
mean, you look at the end credit at any movie. I mean, that sucker goes on.
Yeah.
I mean, that print gets smaller and smaller.
And you know, and a studio outsources so much of it to different companies,
all these different teams, they all, there's so many.
Some, you know, some overseas, some here in the States, you know. And so after we said that, I was like, you know what, I think the post-production COVID did affect the post-production process. Probably more so than you think, but yeah, it's just a mess. So that's my video game soapbox. Don't pre-order video games, pre-order comics.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, it's a good perspective that you wouldn't have as a guy that I've never pre-ordered a video game, so I'm winning.
Yeah, there you go. You're part of the cause. Yeah. But it's hard. It's hard not to. You want to. You know,
well, you want to show support for I mean, if you like it that much,
exactly,
you want to support it.
Yeah. So maybe I'll put an asterisk on there. Pre-order a game if you trust the developer. But here's the thing: people trusted CD Projekt.
Yeah,
like they were, like I said, they were that indie developer. So yeah, you do want to trust them. You know, with the pre-order
with your money.
They let people down. They straight disappointed people.
And you know, I've pre-ordered games before. But a lot of that is because the sales rep gave it to me a false sense of scarcity that I wasn't going to get it.
Right.
If I didn't pre-order.
Yeah. GameStop told you to
I don't know
sell
if
that.
we've really ever experienced, because here in Amarillo we just don't have those kinds of things, right? I know there has been places where that has been the case.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's temporary. You may not get to play it the first week. You may have to wait 2 or 3 weeks.
Right. Now consoles are different.
Yeah.
The actual consoles themselves, like the PS5, like
that for sure. I still haven't seen one of those.
Yeah.
So,
and now, if the Switch Pro ever comes out, yeah, you better pre-order that thing.
I remember there being times here locally where GameStop would sell out of something, but Walmart always had it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
you could be in a line at GameStop at midnight for a couple hours or whatever. You go to Walmart at midnight, just be like, hey, I need to get this game. Okay, cool, here it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like never in a line. So
No.
I do
Well, they're
remember
not
those
even-
times.
They're not even open late for the release. They're just
Yeah,
open.
yeah, they were just there. And specifically, I can remember Halo being one of those.
The main way I would sell reservations at GameStop is how I would sell people on it is you would put $5 down now, get the reservation, and then over the next 6 to 12 months, almost use it like a layaway
Yeah,
and just kind of pay on it. That way, day one it gets here, it's
You're
already
done.
it's already
Yeah.
paid for. You're done. Which, I think that's a more legitimate thing to say.
Yeah, well, and especially with the price of them going up. I mean, that would be a reason.
A wise person says save your money in
Yeah.
a savings account where you can gain interest on it.
Yeah.
And then when it comes out, withdraw the money and buy the game.
you
Right.
made
That's
some.
the thing is when you pre-order a game, when you pre-order a comic, you're essentially giving them your money to make money off of. That you're not making money off of. So. All that to say, still pre-order your comics.
yeah, those are only 3 weeks in advance in most cases.
Exactly,
Sometimes up
yeah.
to 2 months, depending on when you order. But
But like a game where you're pre-ordering it,
sometimes
well,
a year in advance.
Yeah, that's bananas. Go use that money for something better for now and save it, and put it in a savings account.
Yep.
Or a CD. No, don't do a CD. You couldn't get it early enough.
Savings like 5 years, aren't they?
It's low interest, but it'll be 75 cents you didn't have before.
Yeah.
So.
All right, so I guess the other thing we want to kind of talk about is just kind of upcoming things to the channel. So YouTube, we're looking at getting a lot of new content on the channels. I know we're going to be working with Tanner a lot on this kind of stuff. So
Our goal in the near future is trying to be posting something every day.
yeah, and that's on different. It could be YouTube, could be other podcast content. It could be live streaming games as far as tabletop games or other kind of miniature content. So we have a lot of ideas of stuff we want to bring to all the channels and things like that. Specifically YouTube, and then I think Twitch will probably be a big thing as well.
Yeah.
Going with live content.
Get into the Total War or something.
Yeah.
Start streaming that on Twitch.
Yeah.
Oh, Warhammer Total War.
It's big.
Yeah.
People watch that. I mean, even though they killed off fantasy, people love Total War.
Well, I mean, it's still so popular. They're bringing the old world back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For whatever that's going to end up looking like, which Games Workshop still hasn't
Well,
teased a lot of it. But
they've teased a little bit, and we do know that it's going to be strictly Forge World. It will not be a game.
Which doesn't surprise me. That's how they're doing 30K.
yeah,
Yeah. So, but we want to do more in-depth comic reviews. I think we want to help people find exactly what they're looking for on comics as far as Final Order Cutoff goes, giving you guys our top picks of the week. When you're going into your local comic store, or if you're getting stuff from us, we want to give you guys a good look at what's coming out this week, what you're going to get, more previews for our live sales, and then of course more live sales on our content as well. So we want to get to where we're eventually having 2 to 3 different kind of live sales a week, and then of course just more content based on what we're doing. Exclusive cover background stories.
yeah.
We want to be able to share with you guys kind of our process behind the scenes. When we start with Marvel, or if we're working on an independent book. So, like if I'm working with Ron Leary Jr. on a Vampirella book, me and Ron are talking directly, and I'm getting, hey Ron, here's our concept. Here's what we want you to do. Send over some sketches. He sends me some thumbnails. I can kind of go through that process and show you what we see. It's really cool. It's really cool to be a part of that.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of some stuff we really want to start sharing and bringing that to the table. So it'd be pretty cool content to have.
So you definitely want to subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already.
Absolutely.
Click the little bell, get all your notifications when we pump out new content. So more details on what and when and how are coming, but just know we've got a lot of good stuff coming down the pipe.
Yep.
I think that's it for this week.
Mm-hmm.
So
We'll try to be better developers than what we just talked about.
yes, exactly. And everybody just lost my camera, so I think it is now time.
Oh,
no.
We did.
Tanner and I get to still see hi and
Yes.
bye.
So they can still hear me, so that's cool. I hold on.
Did we not have it? It's plugged in. Maybe it's not plugged in. That's interesting.
I don't know. Anywho,
well, if you're listening, you don't care because you don't see cameras anyway.
yes.
So
So thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you next week.
yeah, later.
See ya.